Hello chess friends, I am International Master Ratkovic Milovan. In this course I will show you how to beat d4 with Queen's Gambit accepted. This is an interesting, unexplored, unusual and extravagant opening. Many players have problem after d4. Many players don't know what to play after d4. You're at the right place. This 10-hour course will help you a lot to beat your opponents. When the Queen's Gambit accepted is mentioned, many people think on something passive and simple. Many players don't have a repertoire against this opening, even many strong players. When you ask them what they play on Queen's Gambit accepted, they would simply say that they are trying to get back pawn on c4 and to castle without any concrete variations. I think that Queen's Gambit accepted isn't enough explored and that it doesn't have necessary attention. It's difficult to find a good chess book or a good video on this topic. This is our advantage. We will use this opening and we will beat our opponents on our field. Many old school grandmasters would say that the second move of black d takes c4 is already a mistake. So this opening goes like this: d4, d5, c4, and d takes c4. So many old school grandmasters would say that our second move is a mistake because we leave the center to white. It's partly true. This is a modern chess without prejudice. Yes, we lost our central pawn on d5. However, we will create an excellent counter-attack from the sides and in the center. We will attack white's center and we'll try to destroy it. After taking on c4, we know white's future steps. We can predict his actions. He will try to take back pawn on c4, and the most important thing, he doesn't know our future steps. This is our advantage. This opening isn't easy. We will deal with many variations that as a result have strong attack on the white king. Therefore, you should learn and play these variations carefully. In many cases, we will give our bishop for the knight, or we will sacrifice pawn for the initiative. However, we will play many positions slowly with a small but long-term advantage that we will use in the endgame. So we can start. We all know that for Queen's Gambit accepted, we need Queen's Gambit first. So Queen's Gambit is this: d4, d5, and c4. In the last few years, London system is very popular. Also, openings like London system is bishop f4. Also, there are many popular variations with knight f3. Many strong grandmasters even like Magnus Carlsen, world champion, play bishop f4 or knight f3. So we want to cover all variations after d4. So the first 1 hour we will dedicate to lines where white doesn't play c4. So these variations are knight f3 and bishop f4. Yeah, white wants to play London system or queen's pawn opening. In this case, we want to play a structure that is similar to the Queen's Gambit accepted. Of course, again, we want to play something unusual and interesting. So let's start. Let's start with bishop f4, so the London system. After bishop f4, we can develop our light square bishop. So we play our bishop to f5. Main variation for white is pawn to c4. After c4, we simply play pawn to e6. After e6, white plays queen to b3. White thinks that we developed our bishop premature, so he wants to punish us. But after queen b3, black already has slight advantage. You will see why. After queen b3, we play knight to c6. If white tries to take on b7, we have a winning move. Can you see it? Okay, it's knight d4. Now white cannot stop knight c2. He can try, but after knight a3, we can simply take on a3, pawn takes, and the knight c2 fork. After this move, black has huge advantage. Okay, let's go back. So after queen b3, we play knight to c6. Now white should defend his d4 pawn. How he can do that? He has two options. He can play his knight on f3, or he can play his pawn to e3. Let's start with, okay, sorry, my mistake. So let's start with knight f3. So white simply defend d4 pawn. After knight f3, we have a good move here. We play knight to b4. We indirectly defend our b7 pawn, and also we threat to jump on c2. So what's the only move for white? It is knight to a3, because he wants to stop knight c2, obviously. After knight a3, we take on c4. White queen has to take, otherwise he will lose a pawn. So queen takes c4, the only move, and we play pawn to c6. Now white should develop his light bishop from f1. He has two choices. He can play e3 or g3. After e3, we can play our knight on d5. We attack this bishop on f4. Also, we have threats like queen a5 check or bishop b4 check. So there are many threats in this moment, and after knight d5, black has clear advantage. White cannot stop our threats. So after knight d5, yeah, black is better, much better. He can develop his bishop with g3. g3 is better than e3, but again, it's difficult for white to develop his pieces. After g3, again, we play the same. We jump on that d5. So we attack white dark square bishop. We want to take it. So the most logical move for white is bishop to d2. After bishop d2, we play queen to b6. We attack pawn on b2. White can play queen to b3 or queen to c1 to defend this pawn. Let's start with queen b3. After queen b3, we can simply take, pawn takes, and we play knight from g8 to f6. We have slight advantage. Our pieces are better, more active. Also, he has double pawns on b3 and b2. So this is like last middle game and early end game, something like that. So in this position, black has a slight advantage, and black has better chances to beat white in an endgame. Let's go back. White can defend this pawn with queen to c1. This is also possible, but white queen is inactive on c1. On the other hand, our queen is perfectly placed on b6. Now we can just develop our pieces, but first we are going to take on a3, because in the next move white can activate this knight on c4, and of course we don't want that. So we take on a3, pawn takes, and now we can develop our pieces like this. We want to castle, and again we have better pawn structure and our pieces are more active. For example, bishop goes on g2, we play short castle, rook from f8 to d8. Yeah, black has slight advantage and better play. Let's go back. So yeah, we said that after knight c6, after queen b3, black has already advantage with knight to c6. We analyzed knight f3. There is one more possible move for white. That move is pawn to e3. After e3, again we play the same. We play knight to b4. We want to exploit weaknesses on light squares like c2 or d3. What's the only move for white? Again, the only move is knight to a3 because he wants to stop knight c2. In this variation, we don't take on c4 because after d takes c4, white can simply take with the bishop. So we will just activate his bishop. We don't want to do that. So we simply play pawn to c6. Again, we just want to develop our pieces. Knight goes on f3. This is a logical move. We develop our pieces, so knight f6 is a good move. Probably bishop goes to e2. And now it's the moment. Now we can take on c4. In this case, we don't lose a tempo. So we take, d takes c4. And again, the only move is bishop takes. Knight takes. If this knight takes, we can play knight c2, fork. If the queen takes on c4, we can simply play something like bishop to e7, and later we can jump on d5 with knight from b4. So the best move for white is bishop takes c4. After bishop takes c4, we continue to develop our pieces, so we play bishop to e7, short castle, and short castle. Again, black is slightly better. White pieces are not coordinated. On the other hand, black pieces are perfectly placed. Now we have idea to push a pawn like this and to limit white pieces even more. Yeah, we finished this variation with okay, let's go from the start because it's easier for you to remember. So d4, d5, bishop f4, so London system. We play bishop f5, c4, and we play a6. Yeah, we finished variations after queen b3. So after queen b3, we simply play knight to c6, and I already told you that black has already slight advantage. What about move like knight c3? Knight c3 is also a very logical move. Through knight c3, we play again the same. We play our knight on c6. Our knight is perfect on c6 in this variation. I think that I didn't mention that name of this variation is is queen's pawn. Yeah, okay, this is queen's pawn opening, but London system. But our name of our variation is Baltic defense, pseudo Chigorin defense. So it's pseudo Chigorin because in Chigorin defense, this knight goes on c6. Yeah, this knight goes on c6. In this variation, our knight also goes on c6, so that's the reason why this opening is named pseudo Chigorin. Yeah, after knight c3 we play knight c6. If white play something like e3 is a normal move for white. We play knight f6, knight f3, just normal development. And this is an interesting moment. If we play our bishop on dark square bishop on e7 or d6, it's okay, it's normal, but it's not so active. So we want activity in this opening, and we play our bishop to b4. Logical move for white is bishop e2 or bishop d3, just to develop his light bishop. For example, after bishop d3, we can take simply on c4. Bishop takes on c4. And we play knight to e4. We attack c3 square. So after knight e4, the most logical move, in my opinion, for white is rook c1, but rook c1 is a mistake. We will see why. Now we can use an interesting trick to take an exchange. So after rook c1, we take on c3, b takes c3, and we play our bishop on a3. Rook goes on a1, for example, and we play our bishop to b2, so we trapped his rook. Okay, let's go back. Now he can play something else. He can play queen b3, for example. Yeah, he wants to defend knight on c3. After queen b3, yeah, queen b3 is definitely better than rook c1. Again, we have an interesting plan. We can take on c3 with our bishop, b takes c3, and now we just jump on a5 with the knight. Queen a4 is the most logical move for white, check, and after this check, we play a6. Now white has problems. His c3 pawn is hanging. Also, there is a serious threat b5. Probably the only move for white is bishop f1, otherwise he will lose a pawn or he will lose a piece. So bishop f1, we take pawn on c3, queen goes to a3. Yeah, we took a pawn, but again it's not simple because we cannot castle. You see that this queen on a3 is not bad, you know. She's attacking our knight and she's stopping our castle. After queen a3, we jump on e4. If we jump on d5, for example, to attack his bishop on f4, I will show you that. If we do this, white can simply play bishop to d6. And we have problem because we cannot castle. So after knight c3, queen a3, we go on e4. Bishop d3 is logical move for white. He wants to develop his pieces. We play pawn to f6. This is an interesting move, difficult move to find. Why we play f6? In some cases, we want to put our king on f7. Oh, sorry. And in some cases, we want to push g-pawn like this to attack white king. White plays short castle, and and now we push g-pawn, g5. We want to simplify position. We have one extra pawn, that is enough, and yeah, we want to simplify position. Bishop g3 is the only move for white. Take on g3, h takes g3. Now we play queen e7. We want to exchange pieces. If he takes, we take with the king. Bishop takes on f5, we take on f5. We are a pawn up, and we are much better in the endgame. So of course white doesn't want to trade queens, so he plays his queen to c3. After queen c3, we take bishop on d3, queen takes d3. In this position we can simply castle on the king side, and we are slightly better because we have one extra pawn. Also we can castle on the queen side, and we can push h5, h4. If you like crazy attacks and sharp positions, my advice is to play castle on queen side. If you are positional player, play short castle. Yes. In both cases, black is a pawn up and black has advantage. So after queen d3, yeah, we have two options, just choose. Yeah. Okay, let's go back. So we finished variations. Yes, after, let's go back from the start. So d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop f5, c4, a6. We finished queen b3, so we are on knight c3 now. Knight c3, knight c6, pawn to e3, knight to f6, knight to f3, bishop b4, bishop d3, d takes c4. We spoke about bishop takes c4 and knight e4. So we just we analyzed rook c1 and queen b3 for white. In this case, after d takes c4, white has option to take bishop on f5. He wants to double our pawns on f-file, and he thinks that our pawn structure is bad because we have double pawns on f5 and f7, and on c7 and c4. We will see why is this variation not so good for white. So white plays short castle, we play short castle, queen to e2. Queen to e2 is logical move, he attacks our c4 pawn. After queen e2, again, we have one extra pawn, so we want to simplify the position. We take knight on c3, pawn takes c3, and we defend c4 pawn with d5. Now be careful here, don't play queen d5 because there is bishop c7 threat. And now position is equal because he took our pawn on c7, simply. b5, maybe queen b2, or a4, yes. a4, we just play a6, we want to connect these pawns. Queen b2, for example, he attacks our b5 pawn, and we play rook b8. Yeah, black has one extra pawn, that's it, black has slight advantage. So don't be afraid of taking on f5, so you can simply take with e pawn, and later you can defend all your pawns. So this is not so good variation for white. This is logical opening for white to develop his knights like this. So after knight f3, yeah, just play your bishop to b4, and black has good play. Okay, let's go back. Let's go from the start. So d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop f5, c4. After c4, we were analyzing, and we just play a6. There are two main moves here, knight c3 and queen b3. After both moves, we play knight c6, Baltic defense or pseudo-Chigorin defense, and we have a good play. So after this opening, White can just continue to play London system setup. So he doesn't want to play c4. He simply plays e3. He wants to play positional chess. After e3, we push our pawn to e6. Bishop d3 maybe. And we play bishop to d6. This is very interesting. Don't be afraid of taking on f5. After bishop f5, we can take with our e pawn. Maybe bishop d6, queen d6. This pawn structure is unusual. We have double pawns on f file. But the most important thing about this position is that we have this e4 square for our pieces, especially knights. Our knight is very good on e4. So later we can simply play knight f6 and knight e4. And yes, we have double pawns on f file, but I think that in this position, we have already a slight advantage. Because in my opinion, this pawn structure is better. We can always push f4. And after f4, it takes f4, for example, queen takes. We don't have double pawns on f file anymore. So, okay, let's go back. Yeah, after bishop d3, we play bishop d6. White can just wait. So white can play knight f3. If white doesn't take on f5 or d6, we can simply try to continue to develop our pieces. So after knight f3, we can play knight f6. Short castle, and we play short castle. In one moment, white has to take on d6 or f5. If you play something like knight d2, we can take on d3, pawn takes, bishop f4, and e takes f4. Now black has advantage because look, white has these terrible pawns on d3 and d4 especially. So now we can play c6, rook c1, maybe knight d7, maybe g3, queen b6, and later we will use these double pawns on d3 and d4 to win a game. So yeah, white has to take in one moment. Let's say he takes on, he doesn't play knight d2 of course, so he just takes on d6. We take with the queen. Again, if this bishop takes on f5, we can take with e pawn, and as I said, we have this very good square for our knight. Okay. After bishop d3, okay, again, let's go from the start to repeat these variations: d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop f5, e3. So yeah, white wants to play positional chess in the spirit of London system. After e3, we want to play e6, bishop d3, bishop d6, knight f3, knight f6. Maybe bishop g3. Bishop g3 is usual move in London system, so many players would play something like that. After bishop g3, we just castle, short castle, and we can play something like knight e4, why not? Maybe c3, knight d7. Knight from b to d2 is impossible. This is a common mistake. Now we have two good moves. We can simply take pawn on f2 or pawn on c3. Black has a better play. Okay, black is a pawn up, and black after knight c3 or knight f2 has almost winning position. So yeah, we want normal development. That's it. So we finish this opening with bishop f4 in the second move. So I think that you will have success after this. After bishop f4, we just play bishop f5, and we want to play system like on c4, system like pseudo Chigorin. So we play e6 and later knight c6, and after e3 we just continue to develop our pieces. So we play a6. Again, don't be afraid to double your pawns on f5, because I told you that later this e4 square is perfect for your knights. So that's it after bishop f4. Next half an hour we will work on knight f3. Okay. As I said, now we are doing d4, d5, and knight f3 variation. Name of this opening is Queen's Pawn opening. Again, we play the same. Bishop to f5. Same idea. c4 again. c4 looks like the most logical move in this position. After c4, if you remember, we just play e6 again. Again, queen b3 looks like a logical move. After queen b3, again we play almost the same, yeah. Knight c6. If the queen takes on b7. Now you remember that in variation before, in variation with bishop f4, we simply took on d4, but in this case d4 pawn is well protected with this knight. So now we can jump on b4. So the best move is knight b4. White can defend knight c2 threat, so the only move for white is knight a3. After knight a3, we play rook to b8. The only move for white is to take pawn on a7. The queen takes a7. We play rook a8 again. Queen b7. Now you see that we can draw, that is clear. If you want to draw this game, you can just play rook b8, rook a8, and that's it. If you want to win this game, you can choose this variation, knight f6. Just continue to develop your pieces. White queen cannot escape. Develop your pieces on the king side, and then later you can try to trap white queen. That's it. Before knight f6, there is one interesting move, rook a3. I have to say that this move is suspicious. Yes, it's attractive to take that knight, but it's suspicious. We will see why. White will of course take our rook. B takes a3, knight c2 check, king d1, knight a1, bishop b2 to attack our knight. We have to play knight c2, and then knight e5. Now we have difficulties because our king is still in the center. Also, pieces on the king side are not developed, and this knight on e5 and the queen on b7 are dangerous. Also, our knight on c2 will be trapped. That's the problem. So my advice is to avoid this variation and to play simple move like knight f6. e3 probably. After e3 we develop our bishop. C takes d5 is probably the best move. Then we can take with e pawn, bishop b5 check, and knight d7. We want to castle in the next move, and yeah, we'll have a good position because, as I said, this queen is almost trapped on b7. There are two possible moves for white. And this point, there is castle. After castle, we can play pawn to c6. After c6, white cannot take, because we can play rook b8 and queen goes to a7 and we take bishop on c6. Yeah, this variation is lost for white, so white can play, yeah, instead of taking on c6, he can play bishop to e2. Again, we want to trap this queen, so we play rook b8, queen a7, knight b6, bishop d2 for example, rook a8, queen b7, bishop c8. Finally we trapped this queen. So you see, this is very dangerous for white to play, very suspicious variation for white. Yeah, he has two extra pawns, but his position is bad because his queen is on dangerous place on b7. Let's go back. Yeah, okay, instead of castling, he can play knight e5 to make pressure on d7 square. After knight e5, simply play rook b8, queen a7. Queen a7 is the only move again, and we play short castle. Computer says that black has slight advantage, but in reality, white has already difficult position. His king is still in the center and his queen cannot escape. So in many variations we'll have many threats to trap his queen. Okay. So we finished this queen b7 variation. I hope that you remember it. So we cannot trap this queen immediately, but in a few moves in the future, this queen will be trapped. So don't worry. After queen b3, yeah, we play. So queen b3, knight c6 again. Okay, instead of queen b3, probably the best move in this position and the most popular move is knight to c3. White just develops his piece. After knight c3, again the same. We play knight to c6. Now, I have played this many times, and many players play e3. They play e3 without thinking. Yeah, this is a mistake, of course, and we are going to punish him. So after e3, we have a winning move. Can you see it? I hope you do. So we just jump on b4. Now knight c2 is unstoppable. White can try to save the game, but every variation is lost for him. For example, he can try to check us on a4. After queen a4, we play c6. He can try maybe to play e4. But after e4, we take with our d pawn. Knight jumps on e5, and we push e3. Again, we want to play knight c2. After e3, he has to take on e3 with the bishop. for example, check on c2, king d2, and knight a1. Black is up a rook at the moment, and this king is in the center, so black has clear advantage. Instead of e4, he can try to play his king to d2. After king d2, we just play bishop to c2. The only move for white is b3. So pawn to b3, and we take on c4. Our next move is b5. We will get a piece at least. So we will trap the queen, or we will take that bishop from f1. So again, in this variation, black is winning. In this moment, after knight b4, he can try to play king d2 immediately. But probably this is the best choice for white. Now we don't need knight c2 at all. We can just continue to develop our pieces, and we are much better. We have much better position. So knight f6 is the best move. Maybe a3, knight c6, and again black has clear advantage. Look, this king is very bad on d2. He's still in the center. He cannot castle. Also, our pieces are well developed. They are coordinated, so we have clear advantage. Okay. So yeah, this is the position. We analyzed queen b3. No, sorry. We analyzed pawn to e3. So we can now take a look on queen b3. This is a bad move. Our move is again knight to b4, and black is much better because white cannot stop us from jumping on c2. Again, the same. Just knight b4. That's it. Again, e4. We can take. Knight jumps here, maybe again pawn to e3. Almost the same. So e3 and queen b3 moves are losing. Other moves are better moves are bishop f4, bishop g5, or a3. Let's start with bishop f4. After bishop f4, okay, bishop f4 is probably the best move for white in this position. Now knight b4 is bad for us because he can simply play, he can play rook c1, and we cannot jump on c2. We lost a tempo, so we will not jump on b4. We can play knight f6, e3. You probably know this position. We were analyzing it. Can you remember? Yeah, we simply play bishop b4 again. And it's the same position like after London system when white played just knight f3, e3, bishop f4, knight c3, and we just play bishop b4. One of the variations we were analyzing is bishop d3, d takes, bishop takes, knight e4, rook c1, knight c3, b takes, and bishop a3. We get an exchange. Okay, so after bishop f4, position is familiar. So we will analyze other variations like pawn to a3 and bishop to g5. Let's start with a3 move. This is an interesting variation for white. Of course, he's trying to prevent knight b4. In my opinion, after this move, position is already equal. We just develop our pieces like always. Knight f6, bishop f4, okay, bishop f4 is suspicious move now because we can take on c4. And later we can defend that pawn. We can try to jump on a5 with the knight. So, and also white has whole on b3, and it's dangerous for him to play this variation. So after d takes c4, maybe e3, knight a5. Probably the best solution for white is to take on c4. Knight takes, queen a4 check, we play c6, and queen c4. Now we took a good bishop on c4. We can develop our dark squared bishop and castle. Yeah, so we can play bishop e7 or bishop d6, and we will castle. We have bishop pair and equal position at least. After bishop f4, we can take on c4. Better move than bishop f4 is bishop to g5. After bishop g5, we cannot take on c4 because there is e4 threat. So we should be careful here. So after bishop g5, yeah, we just play bishop to e7. Pawn to e3. And now we have an interesting move. We can jump on e4 with the knight. Yeah, pins are always annoying, so bishop takes e7, probably the best for white. Now you should be careful. Queen takes on e7 looks like a normal move, but after that white can play queen to b3 and we have a problem. That is why we take with the knight on e7. Later we will play our pawn to c6. Also we can play this knight to g6, where he can, yeah, then he can jump on h4 in one moment to try to attack white king. So the best move in this position is knight e7. We can play c6 later, maybe knight g6, short castle of course, and we have a good position. So bishop e7, knight takes, don't take with the queen, again because there is queen b3, and our position isn't perfect. So we take with the knight, maybe knight e4, bishop e4, rook c1, c6, bishop e2, yeah, just short castle, and maybe knight g6. You see that we have something like, this is equal position. We have good pawn structure, our pieces are well placed, we have good pieces. Also, always we have plans like f5 and f4 in one moment. So I think that this variation is good for black. Let's go back. So we were working on a3 variation. As I said, after a3, it's at least equal position because it's okay, a3 isn't so active move for white, as you see. So we just keep developing our pieces. That's it. So this variation isn't something special for white. We develop our pieces, we castle, and we have a good position. Instead of a3, yeah, we analyzed so far 4 variations. One of them is queen b3, one is e3. We said that both variations are losing. Also, we analyzed bishop to f4. We said that after bishop f4, we play the same variations, like the variation we played on the London system. And we analyzed a3 so far. There is one more possible move for white in this moment. That move is bishop to g5. After bishop g5, yeah, the most logical move for black is bishop to e7. Bishop takes e7. Now this is interesting moment. Knight from g8 to e7 looks like a logical move, but knight from c6 to e7 is more interesting and probably better. We will develop g8 knight on f6, and e7 knight would be perfect on g6. By the way, we will play pawn to c6 in one moment just to connect c pawn with the center. So this setup is perfect for us. Knight from c6 to e7, later knight f6, short castle, c6. Okay, knight takes e7, maybe e3, then we just play knight f6, maybe bishop e2, pawn to c6, short castle, rook c1, white is just developing his pieces, knight g6, maybe queen b3 to try to attack our b7 pawn, and we can play our queen on e7. Position is totally equal, both sides have good chances. Yeah. Later we can jump on e4. Always we have idea to play f5 later. We have one extra piece on the king side, so yeah, our pieces are, look, we have 3 pieces on the king side, so our goal is to attack white king. White will probably try to do something on the queen side, but at the same time we'll try to attack white on the king side. Okay, that's it. Now with this variation, bishop g5 variation, we finished. So let's go from the start. d4, d5, knight f3, bishop f5, c4. After c4 we play e6, and we finished these 4 variations. Knight c3, after knight c3, we play knight c6. There are 4 variations: bishop f4, a3, e3, and bishop g5. Okay. Again, after bishop f5, white can play something like bishop f4. Yeah, white can play this opening without c4. Now it's similar to the London system. We just play e6, pawn to e3, bishop d6. If f4 bishop takes on d6, we have 2 options. In my opinion, both variations are good for black. We can take with c pawn. Now our idea is to develop our pieces and later to push e5. So let's try to play something. Okay, bishop d3, bishop g6. We don't want to take on d3 and to simplify the position. We want to beat our opponents in a sharp game, in a middle game. So yeah, okay, of course bishop d3 is possible, just after bishop d3, queen takes d3, yeah, we just develop his queen and position is totally equal, so it's difficult to win the game. Better choice is to play this bishop on g6. Short castle, knight f6. Maybe queen e2 for white, knight c6. Normal development. If white takes on g6 and in any moment, we will take with h pawn, and now we have open h file for our rook, and maybe it's possible to attack white king. So don't be afraid of that. H-file is very good now, and we have good attacking chance. So white can continue like this, knight d2, short castle. Again, after short castle, don't be afraid of taking on g6. Again, take with h-pawn. And now again, we have idea to push e5, and we will have a good center. Instead of taking on g6, he can play his pawn on c3. And after c3, we can push e5 immediately. Position is equal, again, with chances for both sides. Yeah, our pieces are good, our knights are good, king is safe, we have a good center, so this is good normal opening for black. Let's go back. So after bishop d6, I told you that you have two choices. You can take with the queen, of course. Queen takes, bishop d3, and if you remember that variation in London system, you will know what to do now. So you can just simply play knight f6. Again, after taking on f5, this position is interesting. We have double pawns on f5, but we have e4 square for the knight, and we have good attacking chance. For example, short castle, maybe queen d3 to attack our f5 pawn. Now you can play pawn to g6. I think that knight e4 is premature at the moment, so just play g6, connect these pawns, and later you can play knight e4 without any problem. g6, maybe knight d2 for black, he's just developing his pieces. Knight to d7, we do the same. Maybe c4 for white. We can play c6, c takes d5, c takes d5 with unclear play. This position is unclear because later we will jump on e4. White will try to take c file with his rooks. Again, white will somehow try to make some play on our queen side, and at the same time we'll try to play in the center and on the king side. That's it. It's equal position, and don't worry, I think that black has good play. Yeah, at this point, okay, we analyzed these two variations, c4 and bishop f4. White can play something like e3. He doesn't want to develop his bishop, and he doesn't want to push c4. After e3, yeah, we can play something like e6, bishop d3. Again, after bishop d3, don't move your bishop, don't lose the tempo, just continue to develop your piece. Knight f6. Maybe short castle, bishop to d6. Again, after bishop f5 is bad in this case because white has this passive bishop on c1, and it's difficult for white to develop that bishop. Yeah, if he plays something like queen e2, we just castle. Maybe knight to d2, we play our knight to d7, maybe c4, we play c6. We have developed all our pieces. We have good position. Position is equal, maybe even black is slightly better because of this bishop. This bishop is still on c1. So this is perfect position for black, and I think that you will have success. In this opening, again, let's go on the start. So d4, d5, knight f3, queen's pawn opening. Again, play bishop f5, and after bishop f5, after this c4, again we play something like pseudo Chigorin. So after knight c3 or queen b3, we play our knight on c6. If white doesn't play c4, if you play bishop f4 or e3, just continue developing your pieces. Play e6, knight f6, bishop d6, and always after bishop d3, my advice is to, don't touch your bishop, just continue to develop your pieces, and black has good play. It's equal at least. So that's it on this topic. So after d4, d5, you know what to play if white doesn't play c4 Queen's Gambit. So in the next chapter we will start to work on Queen's Gambit accepted. See you soon.